Well, it is a beautiful day in the summer of the mountains of North Idaho. What's up, guys? Welcome to this week's episode of Guns and Cameras. If you've been watching this on YouTube or listening on any of the podcast platforms, firstly, I appreciate you. But if you have been enjoying the podcast, do me a big favor. Hit subscribe on YouTube, turn on the notification bell, leave me a review on the podcasting platforms. It'll go a long way in helping me grow this thing. It's a tough time to be creative these days, and having something like this grow would be hugely helpful for the best family especially. So if you're listening and you do that, thank you so much. You guys, I am pumped to introduce this week's guest. I'm a big fan of his. He is a legendary photographer, and I'm not just throwing that word around lightly. He's traveled all over the world. He shot some of the most incredible wildlife photos, product photos, lifestyle images. He's worked with Cabela's, Bass Pro. He's shot the Call of Duty game cover images. He's wicked talented, and what is really cool about his story is that he does not utilize or use social media at all. You won't find him on Instagram, you won't find him on Facebook, he's not on YouTube. The only way you can see his work is if you go to his website. So, while I get back into trying to capture some nature photos of my own, you guys, there's a butterfly. You guys enjoyed this week's episode of Guns and Cameras. Shooters, are you guys ready? Stand by. Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Guns and Cameras podcast. I am your host, Joshua Best, and today we are joined by yet another very special guest. I can almost guarantee that you've seen this man's work before because he works on some incredible marketing and advertising campaigns for some big brands such as Black Rifle Coffee, Call of Duty, FN America, and many more. We have with us tonight Mr. Kaleb White. Kaleb, thank you for being on the Guns and Cameras podcast with us tonight. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, Josh, that was a hell of an intro. It was way better than I could ever do.
Thanks, man.
Oh, man, yeah, I appreciate it. Well, yeah, so I'm a Midwest-based photographer and cinematographer out of Nebraska. So, yeah, middle of nowhere, which is what I like. No cement. We've got more cattle than people. And yeah, I try and stay busy in the firearms world and many other worlds as well. So
that's crazy. So how did you tell us a little bit about your backstory? How did you get started in a professional career running cameras?
Yeah, you bet. So I actually have a degree in fine art through a small school in Nebraska and at Concordia University. And it's a BFA in fine art with an emphasis in graphic design. So the goal was to be a designer, graphic designer, and then work up to art director, creative director. And that did happen. But eventually I was hiring guys like myself, doing campaigns, and I worked for Cabela's for over a decade. Wow. Yeah, and so that's how I really got started in this community, especially the hunting and fishing community. And the firearms community goes hand in hand with that. But growing up in Nebraska, that's what we do for our spare time and hobbies anyway. So I grew up hunting and fishing and have been fortunate to hunt and fish all over the globe with Cabela's. So I was an art director and creative director, and then I managed a hunting and fishing program. And I was building the brands around photography and video and shooting a lot myself. So I started out in film, and here we are digital.
That's awesome. What was it like to make that transition from film shooting to digital for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I had been thinking about shooting full time for a really long time with my wife. And there was a moment in time that was pivotal for my career and my life. And I'll give you the high level overview. So I was on a hosted hunt in New Zealand on the North Island, and I was actually ran over by a truck while shooting, photographing a red stag. And it's not a story that I often tell, but it's a pretty pivotal story in just reflection and what I really wanted to do with my life. And life's too short to just continue to sit in a cubicle, an office, and do the same things daily in and out. So I knew there was something bigger and better for me. So that was a pivotal moment in just making that decision. And eventually, I mean, it took some time over the course of a year and a half to make that decision and recover from the accident. So, but that was the pivotal moment. And it was a great start because I had built up a list of clientele within the hunting and fishing community, and that's really how I got my start. That was my bread and butter, and that has evolved into tactical firearms, and then I've pushed the envelope too, from nutrition to athletics to bikes, and continue to grow and push myself as a creative. So so I'm not pigeonholed into one category of business, which I think, in my humble opinion, is super smart, especially when there's economic uncertainty. So I can push the gas in certain areas and push the brake in other areas, and that's very helpful to diversify a little bit. But
Wow.
That's the very high level answer.
Man, that's crazy. So was Cabela's, fun fact, right? I also have a very similar backstory. I also have a BFA in visual communication design or graphic design.
Right on.
Started out as
It's
a
way easier to transition from designer to photographer and cinematographer than the other way around.
Oh, 100%. Especially just like I was working with one creative director at a marketing agency I was doing some freelance work for. And I was like, I rely heavily on my background and just like composition and layout from graphic design work that I've done in the past in when I shoot photos and when I shoot videos, just because I know
Yeah.
like how and it might be used. Like I'm looking through the camera and I'm thinking, if I frame this guy up on a left third, I'm leaving a lot of room for graphic copy on the right side. So you almost see the whole composition in the lens when you're shooting the photos, which I think very much comes through in your work, which I think attributes to why you're crazy successful at it. But going back to first gig out of graduation, so you get your BFA, first gig out, is that Cabela's, or where did you start post grad?
First gig out was like a 3-month stint, and I actually owned my own agency while I was in that transition with a local creative in Lincoln, and it was with a small construction company. We were doing some simple bidding and stuff like that, and taking pictures. And me as an outdoorsman growing up in Nebraska, the dream was you bleed red for Huskers and green for Cabela's. So Cabela's was started in Nebraska. So that was always the really goal, is to blur the lines between hobbies and professional life, right? And see where that fit. And it was a great fit for a really long time, and I met some really, really great and inspirational people within those 4 walls.
Crazy. So when you got the gig, tell us a little bit about where you were at when you got the gig at Cabela's, and then what was that first couple of days like?
So it's a funny question, only because my start date was like December 26th, the day after Christmas, in Sidney, Nebraska. And if anybody knows anything about Nebraska, Sidney, Nebraska is like a town of like 4,000 to 5,000 people. It's really small, and the entire community is built around the Cabela's employees. So you go to work together, you only go to Walmart together. There's one hospital. Everybody has the same bars. Everybody has the same places to eat. Everybody plays on the same co-ed, softball team. So it was a very tight-knit community, which I grew up in a small town and on a farm. So that worked out really well for me. I loved it. My fiance at the time did not, because we had to live apart. But yeah,
Crazy. So, first day, what are you thinking? Dream job? Like, where's your head at?
yeah, for sure. I mean, it was definitely a dream job. Um, and honestly, hearing guys talk, eat, breathe, live, hunting and fishing. I mean, it was a no brainer. Like, holy shit! Like, I'm getting all this information from these coworkers who are surrounded with expertise that someone like me. I love to bow hunt, big bow hunter, and I'm gaining more knowledge every day, not only just in the job, but within the community, which was really really cool.
So, what was your official starting title? What was your job description for
I
Cabela's
was
when
a
you started?
graphic designer and brand
Graphic
management.
design.
Yeah.
Cool. So, when did the cameras come into play for you then?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I eventually transitioned to an art director on the retail side and creative director over there. And I was hiring our internal team and collaborating with external photographers as well on campaigns for the retail store. And I eventually moved over to a marketing managing position for a brand within the four walls called Signature Outdoor Adventures, and we hosted hunting and fishing trips internationally. And so I was directing all of the creative for that and putting together the marketing packages to blow that up from three trips a year to 30 plus trips a year. And in the beginning, I was photographing a lot, and I had always had a camera, always had a DSLR. So it went hand in hand to just kind of transition to like, okay, if I'm hosting here, I can kind of photograph, and I can also hire some really good people to support the brand. And in that case, I'm learning side by side with some of those people too on just approach, how they see the world, how they see light, things like that. So really, that was a great opportunity to fine tune skill sets and technical skills. The cameras always come natural to me, and just like you had mentioned earlier, when you're a designer transitioning to a photographer, there's a lot of things that come into play. So not only composition, but lighting and the way you're going to see that finished piece of art. That all comes into play in terms of how I communicate with creative directors and art directors currently. So I'm able to communicate that easily and provide that vision. So it was good to just kind of see the other side of the coin when I was traveling as much as I was.
Crazy. What was your first camera?
Ooh, I think my first big boy camera was a Nikon D90.
D90.
Yeah, that was the very first DSLR to have video. It was 720p. It didn't have any other features. So that was groundbreaking at the time. I think that was like mid 2000s, something like that. So, but I had film cameras and stuff like that throughout college.
That's
And,
crazy.
and I
So
actually
what would?
started in the dark room.
Oh yeah, dude. That's I've recently started shooting 35 millimeter film again, just
All
for
right
funsies,
on.
right? Like I inherited my grandfather's old Minolta, and I'm like, I'm just gonna start shooting it again for fun and just see if some of the skills translate back over. Because I started on film when I was a kid as well, and then now run everything digitally. But
Yeah.
it's been kind of fun rediscovering that because I mean, film does just have a look that you can't really replicate in digital. You can get close, but it just, I don't know, it's its own thing. But
Yeah.
when you were doing film, like, what was it like running? Um, I mean, were you doing large format, medium format, 35? Like, were you running all of the above? And then what was it like running some of those bigger photography campaigns at scale at Cabela's in those days?
Yeah. So I was just running 35 mil, um, and that was just starting out. I eventually, over the years, I've done everything from crop to medium format, and back to full frame. So a little bit of everything. But running those big campaigns, there was an understanding and an education perspective of how all of this comes together, not only from the concept to the actual production, pre-production, production, and then like, final delivering of files, and how to, damn near wrap a building with, back then they were, 12 megapixel files. And so learning that process was super crucial in understanding like how to create and work with other partners in the creative community and deliver a very high level package, nationally, globally, which was very cool. So that has certainly transitioned to how I'm working now with global campaigns and the creative directors that are sitting behind the desks. A lot of times I tell them, listen, I've been in your shoes. I know what you're dealing with behind the scenes, all the red tape, and if I can be helpful in eliminating some of that red tape, or at least getting around it, and enhancing the project, enhancing the final delivery, I'm all about it.
Cool. So let's go back to, we don't have to unpack your accident in New Zealand, but let's go to your mindset, frame of mind, what your kind of your career path, where your focus is before and then after that accident happened.
Yeah, so before the accident, it was, I think, a very traditional path, and I had taken in the corporate world, but I had taken a lot of internal like Gallup tests of just mentally what motivates me. It's a way to connect with the employees from C-suite level and or directors, and so they could kind of use that information to enhance the culture within the four walls. And so when I took those tests, I was pulled aside, and one of the gals that had given me that test was like, "Listen, I don't know if you're built to be a corporate employee." She's like, "You should really be running your own business, and you've got the mindset for it. You've got the drive for it, and from a mental perspective, I really dive in deep to what I love doing. And if that doesn't align, if work doesn't align with that mindset, and to full transparency, like my morals, then it's there's something missing. There's something off there, and it's hard to continue in that role when you're in a scenario like that. And so making the transition to photography, running your own business, you're creating the path. You're in full control. You can push as much gas as you want. You can, not push the gas and coast. And so being in that driver's seat is really where I thrive, versus working directly for somebody.
Crazy. I can relate. I relate to that very much.
I think a lot of creatives can relate.
Yeah. So at what point in time was this? So leading up to your accident, how old were you? What year?
Yeah. So the accident was in New Zealand. It was April 1st, which is kind of weird. April Fool's Day, 2016. And so I was 32 at the time.
Okay. And then how many years invested at Cabela's when that happened?
Yeah, that was just over a decade. So I was right at 11 years. Mm-hmm.
Crazy.
Yep.
So accident happens, you're in recovery, mindset shift. You're going to go full send into chasing your own thing. Take us through that kind of how that all developed, and then the first steps towards growing your own brand.
Yeah. And I think this goes back to, the mindset behind making that conscious decision. Has a lot to do with my family and being close to my family, especially, I'm married. I've got two boys who are now 10 and 12. And at the time, one was only 2 and the other one was just like 10 months. Mm-hmm. And so when you go through a pivotal moment like that, where a vehicle, I had to be life flighted out. So I'll just give you high levels, but a truck had ran me over while I was photographing a stag, ran over my legs, up past my thoracic region, past my neck, So multiple fractures on my chest. I've got a flail chest, so my chest, my bones actually popped out. So altogether it was 12 fractured bones in my chest and clavicle, intestines herniated through the diaphragm. Yeah, so I was bleeding internally, like spitting out blood. Like I'm super lucky to be alive.
Dang.
And when you go through something like that, and you've got little humans who rely on you, there's two ways to think about recovery. It's one, you can do the bare minimum and just kind of get by and coast, or you can, bootstrap it and show those boys by doing. And so, four surgeries later, year and a half, 2 years of recovery, and still doing PT every once in a while, working on all of that, going through like a year and a half of opioids. It was tough. It was really, really tough. But in the back of my mind, I'm always thinking, okay, the best way to influence two young boys is by actually doing. And so I just pushed the gas as hard as I could, and here I am today. So,
Crazy. What was that? So take us through the process of officially launching
yeah, so it was
building your
nervous.
brand.
Yeah, it was nerve wracking. We had actually just purchased a house, and I had told Cabela's, what my plans were, and so they actually let me go once they heard those plans. And that was the day after we purchased our house, and we're looking at each other like, okay, here we go. Like, what are we gonna do? And so within 5 minutes, I was on the phone, making phone calls, setting up meetings. Um, and I told my wife that night, like, listen, I'm gonna make this work. There is no, there's no plan B. There's no plan B. If I come up with a plan B, it's a fail safe, and I don't want that to happen. So I'm gonna make plan A work, and that's what this looks like. And just be patient with me. We're gonna, it's gonna take a little bit of time to grow, clientele, grow partnerships, business sense. Like, I'm not super business savvy by any means, but it's been a learned process over the last decade. So,
Yeah. Again, I relate 100%. But
the best way you can learn is by doing. I truly
right,
believe that.
when you first started out, again, going back to the beginning, right? You're going full send, you're building your brand. First project that was run by yourself. What was it, and what was it like?
Oh man, what was it? It may have been. I don't remember exactly what the first project was, but it was. I think it was in collaboration with a good buddy who had asked me to be, like a PA / second shooter.
Hmm.
And so I did a lot of things for Yeti in the beginning. I did a lot of things for Under Armour in the beginning. So I was shooting all of Under Armour's hunting, fishing, and tactical work. So their Freedom line, and then a lot of their lifestyle stuff. And that evolved into a little bit of work for Dick's Sporting Goods, Academy Sports. I've worked with a lot of hunting brands as well, Filson, um, and it's just continued to grow. So, I've had some really good friends within this industry who have just, pretty much taken me under their wing to just help. And I'm super humble enough to say, listen, I don't know this. What are your thoughts on this? How would you approach this scenario? And, there's no wrong answer in my mind. There's only obstacles, and the best way to get around those is actually either completing them or figuring out how to get around them. And so I relied a little on my friends within the industry to help out along the way, and just give advice, and jump on shoots here and there, and yeah.
Crazy. What's the percentage right now for you of photo and video? You're like 90% photo, 10% video, 50/50. What's your and which one do you prefer?
Yeah, I'm roughly 85% photo, and about,
Cool.
yeah. So it's not, I honestly prefer photo over video, um, and I think a lot of it has to do with the way I compose and the way I see things, and the way I light things. And I still adapt that to video. But honestly, I've studied so many films and directors on how they light from a cinema perspective that have actually introduced that into strobes. And I don't see that terribly too often. But it is, it's something that I often think about and often create. So I use multiple sources of light, whether it's constant, whether it's flash, whether it's mirrors, something simple like that. I'm fully capable of doing that. And it was interesting, because I think we all start out with like the absence of like you don't the scenario of you don't know what you don't know, right? And so if you don't know how to use a flash, you're like, well, I'm a natural light photographer, right? So I think at one point almost every photographer has said that. Until you actually pick up a flash, you start to learn how to use it. You start to understand shutter speed and how all of that's controlled within the camera. And once you learn how to manipulate light, it makes life a lot easier. So I definitely prefer photo, but I feel just as natural behind the cinema camera. I just got back from a week-long shoot with a hunting boot company.
That's what's up. Yeah, no, dude. Understanding, I think that for me, that's always been a goal, is to become a master of working with light, because that's when I feel like that's what I feel like you hit that professional level when you can get to a point where you can walk into any scenario, any kind of day, right? And you can control the outcome.
For sure.
Right? Because like natural light photographers, when you first start out with natural light, your best 2 times a day are blue hour in the morning, golden hour in the evening, right?
Yeah.
Like that's when you get the most dramatic lighting, and you only have a small window of time.
Yeah.
And everything in between is just this like high noon, and everybody's like, oh, it's high noon, we can't shoot then. I'm like, but if you know how to control lighting and manipulate lighting, right, with whether you're using giant scrims or negative fill, or bringing in understanding that even though it's blown out high noon sunlight, you still need to bring in you got to neutralize that and bring in key and understand how that all works.
Yeah.
Then you're there.
Yeah. Yeah. Everything is controllable, not only from the camera settings, but light settings too. And I always tell, when I work with creative directors and we walk into a scenario, I'll tell them, like, listen, this time isn't optimal. This is what shadows are going to do. But here's the deal. We can, if you're okay with us manipulating how this looks, we can get the look you want. It's just going to take a little bit more time to set up. And that's all it is. I mean, so we can move around a few things. But I never approach a scenario, and I know there are photographers out there who only shoot at certain times, which is great, but that's just not the reality of how a lot of agencies work and a lot of corporate gigs work. Like, you've got to be shooting so many sets, within a day or within multiple days, and the only way to get through that is shoot throughout the entire day.
Take us through, Caleb, what a day in the life for you on set during a shoot looks like, morning to evening.
Yeah, I wish there was one answer. I wish every client was.
For
the same.
example, let's build a scenario. Let's say you're shooting for an archery company. They want it's going to be on location in the deep dark woods. They want, I don't know what, 10 to 15 photos for print and social media promotion. They brought you on, and they want it to be dark and moody, kind of more rainforesty vibes. What's that shoot look like for you? Yeah,
that's a great question. In a scenario like that, it's definitely early hours, late nights. This last shoot, it was very similar. We were looking for sunrise, and in this scenario, it's the boots mindset for this hunter was, go all day, right? And so when you're, for example, Western mule deer hunter or antelope hunter, you're getting up before first light, way before first light. So you've got a headlamp on, you're prepping your pack, all those things. That's a big part of the story. And so lighting for those scenarios takes a little bit of time. And especially when, in the summer here, sunrise can be fairly early. In those scenarios, we're up at 3:30 in the morning, driving to location, waiting for the perfect scenario or the perfect cloud or the sunrise, setting up that shot. So it all depends on, each scenario is different, but in this scenario where we're following that hunter through the day in the life, right? He's up super early, super early, and is walking. He's going through trees, all of that stuff. So we're putting ourselves in those scenarios where it's not easy to shoot. Not often am I tethered. I don't have the ability to bring out a big cart in the middle of Colorado or Wyoming or even western Nebraska, where it's we've got part of the Black Hills there, and it's very remote. So we've got to worry about power. So we have to get very creative, and it challenges you to think differently versus some of the big sets where I'm on for commercial clients, where I've got a full team. I've got a grip van, I've got a full lighting package. Anything you want out of the van is available for our needs, and I've got a team that is following me around with a digicart and backing up on site right there then and there. So it can be wild and different, but that's kind of the day in the life. But and usually those shoots go really late too, and I've had times where it could be 4 hours between next shoot, which is crazy turnaround. But fortunately I'm not union, right? So I don't work on those types of jobs. So I'm super flexible to where I can, push and pull levers appropriately for the job.
So how often, talking about just team size and differences between shoot types,
Yeah.
like how often are you like solo run and gun type photographer versus like full team grip the works photographer? Because
Yeah.
like that kind of leads into this next question as well.
Yeah.
Shooting something like what we just described, right? A lot more intimate in the deep dark woods type of photography versus shooting like an Activision Call of Duty
Yeah.
cover, right? So take us through the differences and of some of those scenarios.
Yep. I often talk a lot about this with other photographers who, have questions about even business wise, like, what types of clients do you have? What are your day rates? Things like that. And going back to an earlier comment, I wish every client, every scenario was the same. It'd be much easier on me to just say, okay, here's my day rate, here's the schedule, here's what we're capturing, here's deliverables, rinse, wash, repeat. It's not like that at all. And I always categorize clients into buckets, right? Like a small, medium, and large, and even some extra large clients. And with those budgets are an appropriate team to support the type of creative we need to accomplish within that time frame. And sometimes, especially around COVID, I worked through COVID, and honestly, COVID didn't really hit Nebraska that hard. We don't barely have a million people, over a million people. Like I said earlier, we've got more cattle than people. So kids were back in school. We were traveling. We were working through it. And in that scenario, I had a lot of clients like Under Armour send me a box. We coordinated models, and they've got a very strict process when it comes to that. But we coordinated models, we coordinated locations. I did all that. They just sent me a box and said, hey, here's what we need to accomplish. We just can't risk sending our entire team out there to support this. If you can get this done on your own, great. And so that has evolved into those scenarios, which still sometimes happens, not as much, because I think most creative directors and art directors like getting out of the office, right? They like being on set. They like seeing what you're capturing. And there's an approval process. There's a collaborative process there that is very great to ensure you're going the right direction, you're capturing what's needed, the product looks correct, lighting looks correct, mood looks correct, all of that. But each scenario, each company is a little bit different. And sometimes I've got 2 or 3 people on set where it's just a creative director, maybe a PA or a grip and gaffer, And then all the way up to large sets where, on these Activision shoots, I'm working with a tactical advisement company. And so they've got not only tactical advisors on set, they've got props. Every person has a job, from creative down to, the prop master, to even the armorer, right? Sometimes we're using, firearms that can shoot live ammunition. Sometimes it's just prop guns. But there's a role for everybody in those scenarios, especially with firearms. That safety is a priority, and those people are needed in those scenarios to make sure that the person who is modeling is looking and acting correct. Simple things like finger placement, barrel placement, things like that, tactical movements. It's not natural to a lot of people, even though a lot of times we're working with active military, veterans, and police. So, but it varies all over. And on those shoots, I'm tethered. I've got a Digitech working on a cart, backing stuff up right away, multiple backups, flagging stuff with the client. We're making micro adjustments right then and there to get the exact image that they need for the key art in the next promotion.
Man, that sounds like a blast. What's
It's a
your
lot. It's a lot. Sometimes there's 40 people on set. Sometimes there's 50 people on set. It's a lot.
dude? Well, and it's probably all got to be choreographed, because I imagine that if you're doing like an Activision shoot, they got you're just there running photography, right? Are they also, or are you doing video as well, or do they have a separate team that you're trying to work around for capturing that, or do they block it out differently?
99% of the time, I'm just running photo for key art for
Gotcha.
the covers or websites and promotions. I've ran video for them, but it's very ad hoc. Like, hey, we're going to run this, little bit of scenario. Can you film these details while we're prepping? Something like that. Um, but I'm under NDA for a lot of things that they do, which is okay. But I can give you high level stuff, and really the creative vision is like they come together with sets of what we want to accomplish,
Hmm.
and we try to understand characters and get that background of that character in that scenario. I don't play video games, so I need that more than other people, which is okay. I don't need to know, who, which character is who, to understand how to direct them. It's indifferent to me. But I can connect with them, understanding that background and putting them in that mindset, knowing that, hey, you may have a face mask on and some things may change in final art. Just know that. But I want to communicate to that character or that human that, hey, here's the moves you really have to be thinking about to elicit a response to the audience, to make sure that you are connecting as this character. And so that comes into play pretty heavily.
Yeah, knowing how to pose people, direct people is big. I tell people when I'm working on video projects, especially, I'm like, there's a comfort level. We all have this like this how do I put it? Like there's like a wall, right, where we feel like, hey, this is my max charisma level, and if I go any farther past that, I'm just gonna. It feels weird because you feel like you're over emoting, feels socially unacceptable, and so usually I tell people I'm working with or when I'm directing them, I'm like, you're going to hit that point, and for it to play appropriately on camera, you need to blast through that level by like 25%, and you'll be right there. And that's the part that's always fun to work with people, to like, they'll feel like, wow, I felt like I was crazy, and I'm like, yeah, but on camera you look perfect, looks totally normal.
It's so funny.
Um,
That's a great. I'll have to use that. I always say, if it feels awkward, it looks good on camera.
exactly. And so, and that's
Just
like,
embrace the
again, with
awkward.
posing somebody, it's like, hey, I'm like, you got to throw the hip out. And they're like, well, what do you mean? And then I get up, I'm like this, and I throw my hip way out. And I'm like, you need to really push the hip out. And you got to
Yep.
bring the elbows out. And you need to really over exaggerate that pose. And that's what's always fun when you're working with people in the tactical community, right? When you have these operators, like some guys get it, some guys don't. Like I
Yep.
was doing a shoot with two lamb, right?
Yeah, yeah.
We've
Salt of
both
the
worked
earth
with
human.
before,
He is so
right?
unbelievably great.
Yeah, love working with two. But we were doing a shoot for a supplement company down in Colorado, and we were working with. I had two, and two gets it right because he's worked with you and he's worked with Activision, and he gets that there's, things that are tactically accurate don't necessarily reflect well in camera, right? But then we were also working with another gentleman, and he, like, again, he's a SWAT guy, former military, and he's like, but in real life, this is how it would go, and I'm like, yeah, but I understand and I agree, tactically not sound, but visually better. So we got to compromise on that. So it's always fun working with those guys because you're like, and once they get it, once it clicks, they're like, oh, you mean I can do the tactical hero pose that I've always wanted to do or seen in the video games, but never get a chance to. So it's always a blast to work with
I
those
always
guys.
try to make it a habit out of showing those type of people the back of the camera, and I'm just like, hey, let's take 2 minutes, look through some of these. This looks great. This doesn't. This works better. Do you see your facial reaction here? Money. Like, do this and repeat it. This is where we want to get. And there's always moments in there where I'm pushing, and I'm not an extrovert by any means. But when I'm on set, I really have to force myself to communicate because I'm giving the direction to these models, like you are, and you really have to push them to, hit that line and go past it. And each person's different, right? So you have to find what connects with them, and it's a big personality deal. Like it's a different it's way more personable than I thought I would have to be as a creative.
Yeah, and I think there are times when you get to work with, and I'll be curious to hear your opinion on this because I know you've worked with both, but working with people who are not models, right? Amateurs, right? And then professional models, because I explain this to people. Everybody likes to dig on models, and I'm like, look, it's not as easy professionally as you think it is. Because when you work with somebody who is a professional model and knows how to move through the poses and put their body and do it quickly and efficiently, as the photographer, you're like, thank you, that's easy. It's like you walk up, you got the outfit, they know what they're supposed to do, I know what I'm supposed to do, and it's like boom, 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 shoots over, we got it, awesome, right? Versus working with somebody who's never modeled before, and then they get up there and like, oh man, like my body all of a sudden feels super awkward, and they don't know where to put their hands, and so but it is fun when you get to work with those people who don't know how to do that, and you're like, let me help you, and then you get that photo and you show it to them, and they're like, whoa, like I actually look pretty good, and you're like, yeah, see, like, good job, right? And then you get to continue to see them as they develop, which is a blast. But what do you how do you feel about directing people? Like, what do you prefer, professional model or total amateur?
I don't know. I'm divided. It depends on the type of shoot. Like I've worked with both. I've worked with a lot of professional models, especially from the nutrition side, especially from the athletic side. Some are really, really great. Some are super humble. People are people. Some can be kind of divas, if they are a professional model or come from, a modeling website. We've hired gals on fishing shoots who just refused to hold a fish, and we said, listen, this was the job, this is what we're doing, this is part of it. And there was a lot of complaining on on set, and it was fun. I always try and stay positive though in those scenarios. It takes a lot to piss me off, and honestly, I don't get mad terribly too often, which I and on set, if my mood goes down, I can tell everybody else's mood goes down, and if I let them affect me when I'm giving direction, that's the whole set just kind of goes down. And I hate to see that happen when people are spending so much money and time in getting a product that they really, really want to happen with a collaborative and creative like myself. And so it's their money, and so I always try to put that optimism hat on and say, listen, this fish is going to live no matter what, and if it does die, God makes new every day. So It'll be okay, you know. But honestly, my favorite people to work with are veterans, and that's because they've been in part of a system that has been ingrained in their head, like they need to help out, they need to work. You know, there is no set time limit. It's not like you get as an active duty military person, you get paid the same no matter if you work from 8 to 5
Hmm.
or noon to 2400, or I mean 0 to 2400, right? You could work
Yep.
all day, you get paid the same. And so they just go, they ask questions, they don't complain. They just want to do well and help out and participate. And part of that is playtime, right? Especially in a firearm scenario where you're showcasing some new guns. I'm like, guys, we're playing here, like this is just fun.
See if I can get this. And click. Nice. Hey, what's up, guys? We're halfway through this week's episode of Guns and Cameras, and that means it's time for me to tell you it's been brought to you by 1156 Productions. If you are in need of high quality photo or video services, go to 1156productions.com, open up that contact page and send me a note and we'll get something started. Also, this episode has been brought to you by Tokens of Valor. Tokens of Valor is my boutique jewelry company that takes ballistic components like brass and copper and turns them into one-of-a-kind, hand-forged, wearable works of 925 sterling silver. They're pretty cool. If you or someone you love is in need of a custom piece of jewelry, go to @Tokens of Valor on Instagram, send me a DM, and we'll get something started for you. Also, you guys, little known fact, Guns and Cameras now has a live merchandise store where you can buy t-shirts, stickers, patches. If you go to 1156productions.com, navigate to the menu, click on Brand Store, you'll find everything right there. If you buy something, thank you so much. All of the proceeds are just going back into growing this platform. You guys, again, like I said, we're halfway through the episode featuring Mr. Kaleb White. Kaleb is a legendary photographer, and in the first half, he has dropped so much awesome information that it's hard to believe we still have another half an episode to go. So, I'm going to get back into taking some photos and getting eaten alive by mosquitoes. You guys enjoy the rest of this week's episode of Guns and Cameras with Mr. Kaleb White. So, speaking of firearms, let's go to professional and personal. So you're in
Yeah.
Nebraska, so I assume you own guns. What is your everyday carry for firearms? And then follow up, what's your everyday carry for camera equipment?
Yeah, that's a good question. So everyday carry for camera equipment, I typically run the Z9, Nikon Z9, and Z8, and those are my go-to camera bodies. I have a plethora of lenses. I personally don't run any zooms except for one, and that only zoom is a 70 to 200 2.8.
Mm-hmm.
Everything else is a prime. So I've got 24, 35, 51 twos, 135, 1/8s, the Plena, a 400, things like that. And then I've got a collection of late 70s and early 80s vintage Zeiss glass that
Dude,
I've converted to EF,
nice.
and
Love the vintage Zeiss glass, man.
I've declicked, so
Mhm.
you can use it for cinema as well, and really it's set
Cool.
up for cinema. But it's got a certain look, it's got certain coatings to it, and I'll actually show up to a high-paced shoot, like an athletic shoot, and these guys are like, all those manual lenses?" And I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, it's going to be tough. It's going to
Mhm.
be rough. There's going to be a ton of focus. There's going to be a ton of images out of focus, but um, it is what it is, man. But once you see the look of this, and once we nail focus, like it's going to be unbelievably pretty.
Yep.
And
It's
part
the
of that
secret
is the look.
sauce. Yep. Oh, 100%.
Yep. Everyday carry is it's an older what is it? Springfield Armory um, Mod 2. That's
Cool.
everyday carry. So I've got an extended magazine. Um, I've only got a handful of pistols actually that I carry, and both of them are Springfields. Do have some pistols, revolvers, like some collectibles, like Colt Pythons, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Smith and Wesson, M&Ps, things like that. But
That's awesome.
a lot of my firearms, I don't own a lot of firearms, but all my firearms are very specific. As a hunter, I'm big into shotguns. So I've got
Hmm.
a ton of shotguns, especially, pheasant to goose to my turkey setup.
Hmm.
Each one's a little bit differently. So I've got those set up. But, all my rifles, they are specifically set up for hunting, you
Hmm.
know. And I'm not one that just goes out and plink to plink. I'm just not that. If I go out to shoot, it's usually to practice and preparation for a hunt.
Hmm. So you got one designated hunting rifle, or do you have like a couple? I'm thinking like something higher caliber for like elk plus, and then something smaller for elk minus, maybe a
Yep.
coyote gun.
Yep. Oh, I've got everything from 223, 556. I've built my own ARs, so I've got those too. But up to 300 Weatherby, for
Hmm.
big game.
Nice.
Yep. So
That's what's
one of
up.
the
And
one of the neat things I always tell people, like especially veterans, like when I'm on these things, like, listen, I don't have a military background,
hmm.
but I've probably and this is odd to say, like I've probably hunted more things that are actually legal, like animals around the world, than probably anybody I know. Like I've got taxidermy. I've got a miniature mountain from New Zealand that has a full body tar and chamois. And I've hunted, 400-inch red stags in New Zealand. I've hunted on every huntable continent.
Man, those red stags are crazy.
Oh, they're beautiful. I love them.
Crazy looking animals, man. I would love to. I would love to travel overseas a little bit more. So far, I grew up in British Columbia, Canada. So I
Oh yeah,
Canada
beautiful. One of
to
the prettiest places on earth.
oh yeah. I'm pretty spoiled growing up there. Grew up in Golden, BC, about 40 minutes to the west of Banff, Lake Louise.
Yep.
Right, grew up skating on the lake there staying in the chateau, and yeah, beautiful place to grow up. Kind of spoiled me a little bit though, because everywhere I go, I'm like, yeah, those mountains are nice, but whatever. Canadian Rockies still trump card most
Oh
of
yeah,
them.
I always tell everybody that BC is one of the prettiest places on earth. I've hunted
Yeah,
big black bears on Vancouver Island.
dude. Yeah, yeah. The
They've
island
got some
bears, man.
monsters.
Yo, yeah, I love it up there. So I get up there as often as I can, and then I travel all over in the States, which has been fun. But still haven't crossed an ocean yet. Closest I've got was Hawaii, and that's in the middle of the Pacific. But would love to. New Zealand would be crazy. I'm a big Lord of the Rings fan, so just getting down there to geek out over all those locations would be cool. But let's see. Moving forward, this is let's go into this question. I kind of know you already kind of touched on it right up at the beginning, so I know probably what your oh shit moment question is, but it's a question I ask everybody on the show. Is we all have those oh shit moments, right? So it could be good, could be bad. Everything from forgetting to bring SD cards to accidentally formatting to being accidentally run over by a vehicle during a photo shoot, which is pretty big. But besides that one, what's your next top oh shit moment in your life and career?
Mm. Man, that's a good question. A tough one too. I mean, I've had camera bodies go down where I'm notorious. I don't put camera
Mm-hmm.
straps on my cameras. Everything I like having it in my hand. I don't like anything around my neck. So when I'm shooting, I'm notorious about setting the camera down.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've done that where, a few people have gotten super, super nervous. I've never lost any files or anything like that. I'm really good and diligent about backups and making sure that all of those files are protected in multiple places. I've got custom servers and things like that that are, over 200 terabytes big. Like it's like they're massive and set up for all of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
There was one time in Africa that was kind of silly and it kind of jumpstart, a new body where I'd run out of that D90 where I've, hit the peak of what that D90 could do. And I set it down on a Land Cruiser. And so in Africa, Land Cruisers are open in the back and they have seats where you can sit up there and you can glass animals and you can scout animals with your PH and guide. And then, you kind of get down and hunt. So I had set my camera and 7200 up there. And I didn't know this, but one of the kids had drove the truck off to come meet us. Well, that camera had fallen off and just pulled the bayonet right out of the right out of the body. All the screws in the bayonet just pulled right out.
Oh man.
Yep, yep. I have gotten cameras wet. I'm in salt water a lot. I do a lot of underwater stuff. So cameras have gone down in those scenarios where they're a little wet. But other than that, from a gear perspective, things have gone down here and there. But I use and abuse my stuff, and I don't protect it like it's some expensive item that I can barely afford. I
Yeah.
use it as, and I use the analogy a lot often. Like if I'm a carpenter, I've got a hammer, right? And I'm gonna use that hammer until it breaks, and I'm probably gonna have another backup hammer if
Hmm.
it does break, because I need to continue to work and provide and complete the job.
Yeah.
And
It's a
so
tool.
these are just tools to me. They're not some like item that has to be super clean and sit on a shelf that looks nice.
Hmm.
A lot of my cameras are pretty dirty and dusty. I try and keep them clean. The sensors are always clean, but the glass is always clean. But I'm setting these things down where we're shooting in the desert, and you've got an AR that's just blowing gas out that
Hmm.
yeah, out at you, and it's hitting the dirt and it's just coming right back up at you.
Yep.
It doesn't bother me that all of that gets onto the camera. And
Yeah.
I've actually had on all these hunting shoots I've done blood, feces all over the camera. So,
Hmm.
but I always tell people the worst is when I don't like using sunscreen, because the sunscreen is really greasy.
Yeah.
And if I touch the camera after that, it's like I don't want a greasy camera.
Yeah. Valid. Yeah. Valid. 100%. I agree. Um. So, dude, what are you still? Man, you've shot so much stuff all over the place. Is there something that you still like? Are chasing? Like, is there a photo that you're like is your kind of like your white whale, so to speak, still, or are you like just where are you at in your career with respect to photography?
Yeah, that's a great question. And honestly, I haven't thought about that in a while.
Hmm.
Humbly, I always want to say I haven't. The best photo has yet to be taken, and that's just me mentally pushing myself. Like, one, don't be fucking lazy. Like, if there's a scenario that could be cool, make it cooler, right? If there's a scenario that's going to take a lot more work to get the shot needed, whether that's lighting, whether that's coordinating people,
Hmm.
whether that's pushing, the model to do something different. I tell myself, one, don't be lazy, get it done, and make it cool. This can be way better than it is by pushing the envelope. And so I always tell myself that I haven't made it. Now I'm nowhere close to it, and I don't even know what made it means. I'm trying to just keep that out of my head, right? And just show up every day, do what I say I'm going to do, and deliver consistently to some of my best partners,
Hmm.
and just keep pushing. Like the best shot has yet to be taken, and that could be today, that could be tomorrow. A wise photographer buddy, his name's Dushan Smetana. He's up in Montana. He was a guy that befriended me very early on in my career, and he always said, "Impress me." Like I'm like, "Oh, this is kind of a cool shot. Let me show it to you." He's like, "Impress me." And that mentality of like, is it that good, or can it be better?
Hmm.
Oftentimes I will get stuck shooting something over and over because I want to move something just a little bit better. I want to time
Yep.
something just a little bit differently. I want to change these settings on the camera. I want this model to make sure that all these things are perfect, to make sure that it's ideal, and that's probably what separates a lot of people, is those
Yeah.
details. But he
Yeah.
always said like, I want 12 great shots a year. 12. That's it. And so when you think about that,
Hmm.
I mean the last shoot I did, I had over 20,000 images in 3 days.
Hmm.
To choose one from that would be, be pretty tough,
Hmm.
but to try and choose 12 for the whole year, I mean that's really really pushing, your creative tenacity.
Yeah. Yeah. I learned that kind of concept from one of my my life drawing and one of my painting professors in
Oh,
college, where it was like we'd do the critiques, right? So we'd have, we'd have a week to work on a piece, and then at the end of the week we'd put it all up in front of the whole class, and we'd have to present and explain our concept, and then the professor would ask. He would only always ask like one question: is like, is it done? And the students would be like, well, what do you mean, is it done? Like, I mean, it's up here. And he's like, well, yeah, is it done? Could you push it more? Like, do you feel like it's complete, or is there something else you could do on it to make it better? And that was, I carry that on into my work as well, where I think the fun thing about, and this is why I do like photography personally. Like my bread and butter right now is video production, which I love doing, but my passion is photo still, because there's something that is magical about photography where you're just capturing one moment, right? And you're after that one shot. Like you could take, I try to go for like a 10% rule, right? Like for every 100 shots, there's 10 usable images. That's like the average I shoot for. And then, but again, every shoot is different, because no two scenarios are ever the same, right? Like you are banking the knowledge and the expertise and the experience that you're garnering as you go through your professional life, but no two scenarios are ever going to be the same. They're never ideal, which means there is that potential for always having like that one photo. Like I still, for me, I'll be scrubbing through, I'll be like, whoa, like surprise even myself, like, oh dang, like
yeah,
that's a
yeah.
pretty good shot. Like I'll
There's
take
always
that one.
surprises, which is great.
But especially if you're working with natural light, even with control, there is always that potential where there is always that element where you took that picture right at that 1 second, and the sun was where it was at, and your lighting was where it was at, and it delivered that result, right? Which I think is magical, and that's a big part of why I love photography.
Yeah.
Um,
You
but
mentioned something earlier that made me think of this as, advice for upcoming creatives
mhm,
is just the review and the reviewing process and the critiquing process, right?
mhm,
Going back to, our BFA days of our professors saying like, okay, we're going to critique this in front of the class.
mhm,
Like sometimes it was brutal. I will not tell you like I was the best fine art student. Like,
mhm,
like I wasn't the best drawer. I wasn't the best painter. Multimedia I could do, and that's because I grew up on the farm. I could build,
mhm,
and so that came a little bit more natural to me. But to be honest, like out of all the kids in our classes, like there were very many that took the criticism
mhm.
well. And to
Right.
me, I'm like, this is harsh, but
I want it. I'm like, bring it,
how do I
bring it.
get
I want to
better?
get
Right,
better.
right, right.
Exactly.
And so I ran track in I ran collegiate track as well. And the same thing, like if I needed to make adjustments in my training to get better for that track meet, I needed to do it, right? And it's
Mhm,
just like art. You work on it until you perfect it, or at least you think you've perfected it, and then you get to an understanding of like, okay, it's starting to flow a little better. How can I continue to improve it? That critique process is very important. I'm
mhm.
always asking, like, hey, does this look okay? I want to make sure that it looks okay to you. It may look okay to me, but that may be, my subjectiveness saying, my internal attorney saying, you're justifying, the way you shot this by
Mhm.
saying, yeah, it's good enough, right?
Yeah.
So I always use that and tell that to other young artists. Go through that critique process. Don't take it personally. You're going to take hundreds of thousands of photos throughout
Mhm.
your career. Some are going to be winners, some are not.
Yep.
That's life. Get over it.
Yep. That goes back to, dude, I 100% I agree. We had a professor in college that was, I think on Rate My Professor, he had one of the worst ratings ever, just because he would I think it was, what was it? Print and composition class. It might have been one of those, but we had to put up our work on a wall, and he'd come through with a red Sharpie and just destroy everybody, right? And then be like, do it better, do it better, do it better, and call them out in front of the class. Why did you put this here, right? Why is this block here? Blah, 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 I don't know. It just happened that way. It's like, wrong, cross it out. Like that's the wrong
Brutal.
answer, right? But
Brutal.
dude, I had nothing but mad respect for that guy. And when I was also working on campus in the marketing and communications department, and he was the lead photographer for the university, for athletics and everything else as well. And so I got to work with him directly outside of class and just developed mad respect for that guy, because it was like, you know, everything's on purpose. There's never, don't let, there are happy accidents, but for the most part, whatever you can have control over, you should have control over creatively, and use that to communicate a specific message, right? And that's been something that's been huge for me as I do work, where it's like, even if something is by accident, I'm not going to go up and say happy accidents. It's going to be like, that happened that way because I did this intentionally. And I think that, again, is like what you're saying, is a big thing that separates a lot of people's work from others. One thing I wish, like, and I have an idea of maybe using Guns and Cameras, the platform, in this way down the road, but creating a forum for peer review specifically, I think, is huge, because I don't know that social media, which leads into our next question here, I don't know that social media is a great sounding board for actual critique or peer review from other people. You, Caleb, are a guy, this is one of the things I think I first reached out to you about a couple of years ago, was the fact that you don't use social media at all. Can you take us through, why don't you have it? Why don't you use it? And
Sure.
has it impacted your ability to get work in your career? Take it away.
Yeah, that's a great question. There was a point where, as an artist, you're putting things out there, and you're understanding how algorithms work is really influencing the decisions you're making of what you're putting out there. And I hate that. Like, there's never been a time where a great artist has been influenced publicly, or even great products. And I use this example all the time. Like, nobody wanted the iPhone until Steve Jobs told you needed the iPhone, right? The
Yeah.
public didn't say, "Hey, we need an iPhone." No one said that, And so when it lands on my shoulders and I'm in control, that's what I want to do. Like, if I'm heading down a creative path that works for me, is my style, and that works for my clientele, that's the best case scenario. I don't want to be influenced by algorithms or anything like that. I don't want to be chasing algorithms. But there's a simpler answer than that. Why I just shut it down. So when my oldest boy was 3 years old, I'm sitting there scrolling on Instagram or something like that, and he said, "Dad, why are you always on your phone?" And he's right there, and I look at him and I'm thinking to myself, "Shit, you just called me out. Like, why? Why am I doing this? I'm here. We're together. We should be playing together." So that day, I'm like, okay, well, I know I can back everything up, so I'm not going to miss anything. It only took like a week to really get by, that habit of picking up and scrolling through, but I don't miss it at all. The clients that I did get from it, they were okay. They complained more, and that's a general statement, because they didn't really understand the commercial process and how it works. But being from the Midwest, being born and raised in Nebraska, I pick up the phone, man. I'll give you a call. Like, I call my neighbor, I'll call businesses, I'll call creative directors. I'm still printing books. I'm not repped or anything like that, but I'm on a couple photo sites like Photopolitic, Ad Edge, things like that are helping get my name out there. So I do all of the hard work myself. I'm a one-man team to promote myself, to market myself as well. And I feel, in an age where, AI has come into play and people are worried about AI, right? I'm doubling down on the human element. Like, you want to work with a human, answer the phone, because I'm going to be there. And I'm going to work with you. I may fly out there and shake your hand. And that may be 5 years of curating that relationship before I even get a piece of business for you. I'm not looking to make a quick buck from anybody. Mm-hmm. I'm in this business to really build long-term relationships and work with really, really good people. And the social element just social media element just doesn't fit into that scenario.
That's good advice. I actually, after first I spoke to you because I think it was, I went down to my first SHOT Show. This would have been 2023, probably.
Yeah.
2023, 2022. Went to the first SHOT Show, went down there, and dude, just felt absolutely defeated after the first couple of days. Because, like, again, I had no social media presence. Was trying to figure out how to even do that, feeling the pressure of, like, you're not relevant if you don't have a following. And came back, and I know I'd been working with Two, and Two was telling me about the work that he had done with you, and so I looked you up. Couldn't find you on social media. I think I shot you a message on LinkedIn or whatever. Got your email somehow. I was like, hey, has this impacted your ability to get work at all? And I think you told me that the exact thing you just said. And so I nuked it all. Like the next I got that email from you, I'm like, screw Instagram, screw it all, nuked it all, right? And I did, I think that whole summer, 3 months, no social media at all. And it was amazing. One of the best things I've ever done for my mental health, but also just,
Oh,
again, the work, right? Like,
yeah.
because I don't think that we realize, and I tell people this all the time, when, I've talked to a couple of different schools about it. I try to talk about it as often on here as I can, is that you don't realize how much you're influenced by what you're consuming on social media,
Oh, it's
creatively, what you
terrible.
feel like you have to create. And I'm speaking to myself because I'm like 2 steps away. I probably will tomorrow do the same thing after talking to you again. It's just like I've been thinking about taking another summer off of at least the 1156 page. I know that for Guns and Cameras, this is something I want to continue doing, so I'll probably maintain that, but it'll be on my computer, not on my cell phone.
Yeah.
Just because, again, I think there's a massive value to that. And again, just from like that was going to be a question I had for you, was how you feel about AI, right? Just because it's a pretty common thing. You answered it already exactly the way I expected you to, which is, like you are doubling down on the human element, which I love because I'm
I'm
trying
like
to do the
I'm
same thing,
it's so I'm going
you
through
know?
a complete rebrand right now, and
Yeah.
I think it's a good conversation. Like I'm the artist I'm working with. I told him, listen, this is where I stand as a human. Here's me in the box, right?
Hmm.
And when you've got a farm kid with Midwest values who is used to using their hands, their mitts, to make
Hmm.
things work, to show up day in, day out, whether it's rain or shine, that's how I want to run my business.
Hmm.
And if the tractor breaks down, sometimes we don't have the time to run to town to fix it. We may
Hmm.
need to weld it. We may need to create our own part. We may need to get by. And I've actually influenced that on photo shoots before,
Hmm.
where I was down on a shoot for Dick's Sporting Goods, and it snowed and froze in the middle of like spring, where it's supposed to look like summer. So the porch that we're shooting on has snow on it and frost, and they're like, "Well, what are we gonna do?" And so instantly, I'm like, "I'm gonna go to Home Depot. I'm gonna buy a propane heater." So I get there, I buy like a used one for budget
Hmm.
purposes. I'm like, they're probably not going to use this again. We'll probably end up just keeping it at the Airbnb. I get it back, it doesn't work. So I take it apart, I rewire the damn thing,
Hmm.
and I'm like, guys, we're gonna
Attaboy.
get this. We're
There
gonna
you
get this
go.
going. We're
There
gonna
you
heat
go.
models up. We're gonna melt the snow.
Yep.
We're gonna get this shoot done. Like that's the type of mentality that I'm doubling and tripling down on from a human element, and I think that is the right call with the influence of AI, to separate myself from the pack of a very saturated market.
Hmm.
You're going to get someone who you can trust and who's always going to show up and do what they say they're going to do. And if there's a hurdle, we're going to go over it. We're going to go around it. It doesn't matter. We'll get it done, and we'll
Hmm.
get it. We'll do it well.
Dude.
It's that grit and tenacity, really. It's so I'm doubling down on that. It's like it's a combination. It's a weird combination, but I add humor into it too. So
No, I dig it. Caleb, you're a man after my own heart. We got to be best friends. Because I love all of what you just said. I mean, like I think of that reminds me of like that again behind the scenes of the Lord of the Rings films. I'm a super nerd when it comes to that,
yeah,
but they had to do that, right? It snowed, and it had to be spring in the shoot, so they brought out a bunch of torches, melted the snow, and it was like, you do what you got to do to get the shot, right? Like, And dude, yeah, I love that, working with your hands. Like, that's my whole thing, right? I like to build things. I like making stuff. And at the core, again, going back to the core, I'm an artist at the core, right? And that's my main drive. And I've always struggled with the business side and like the computer side and the whole. This goes back to another question. And if this is like what do they call them, trade secret, then don't, by all means, you don't have to answer. But it goes back to outreach and how you are you a word of mouth, like, referral guy for new projects, or what's your outreach process look like for taking on new clients?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't think there's any trade secrets, man. I don't think there's a magic pill. I don't think there's one platform that just is going to work. I think a lot of it comes down to showing up and, facial and name recognition, right? It's just like any other artist. You start to get your foot in the door, you start to build rapport with creative directors. I will say LinkedIn is a great place to do that. And I would encourage any artist who doesn't want to be on social media to still hold a LinkedIn page, because you can connect with decision makers and you can be in their feed in a professional manner without having to chase algorithms. I don't post on there much. I usually only post when I'm home, really, just because I don't want the distraction. So I do think LinkedIn is one that is beneficial. Also, I keep, and this is a very manual process, but I keep a spreadsheet of creative agencies, decision makers, and who those people are, based on where I found their information. That could be from LinkedIn, that could be the agency's website, that could be from Hunter.io. Not many people know about Hunter. So Hunter, you can look up email addresses, which is a great resource. But also I'm on photopolitic.com, which is also another resource and directory for photographers and cinematographers.
I've never heard that before.
Yeah, Photopolitic is really great. And then I just started an Ad Edge. And so there's only roughly 80 to 90 artists on Ad Edge in the world, and
Where's that?
Ad Edge is a creative resource, and a lot of companies use that when looking at creative directories, things like that, for upcoming projects, what people have worked on, things like that.
Cool.
Yeah, it's a little different. So those are the resources I use. I still print books. In fact, I've got one I can show you real quick.
All right, I'm going to request for you. I will buy it from you, but I need to get a signed one from you because I love it.
I'm not signing anything.
Oh, yes,
But
you are. You got to sign mine.
I still print books that have, really good
Dude.
paper, and I'm sending these out to creative directors, personalizing
beautiful.
notes, things like that. And this is categorized into hunting, fishing, all sorts of things, and then even, which I'm sure you'll appreciate.
Oh, yeah.
I've done, all the big campaigns for FN, worked with Tim Kennedy, Colion Noir.
Yeah, I shot with Tim earlier in Texas this year. It was fun.
Yeah, he's a wildcat.
Yeah.
He's a wildcat. So I'm still sending.
Dude, that's what's up. All right, I gotta have one. Can I have one?
I'll send one.
Okay, thank you. I know they're expensive. Where do you get those printed at? Because I love printing my work. So one of the things I started doing recently was, again, old school artist, right? Goes back to it. But I started going down to SHOT Show, where I got one of those little like Canon like portable 4x6 printers or whatever.
Yep.
There's a guy I saw on social media. One of the few things that I got from it is his handle's the Shutter Ghost, and what he does is he builds these little swag bags. He'll find a car that he likes while he's out riding his motorcycle, and he's got his little portable print station, and he'll do like a little mini secret photo shoot of the car, do a quick retouch, print out a whole 4 to 6 photos, throw them in a bag with a keychain and some other like a sticker and swag, and sticks it under the windshield wiper of the car, and then just pieces out, right? Gets the whole thing on video. I saw that, and I'm like, again, I love that kind of stuff. That like is my passion, and so I'm stealing that. And so for SHOT Show, more recently I started doing that. I had a bunch of little bags printed with the logo on it, and I started printing out some of my favorite photos. Did art print, so I got my artist proof book down here, right? So it's got all of the prints, an
Oh,
artist-proof
yeah.
version of all the prints in
Yep.
there, and then how many I printed, and trying to keep it professional. And then I just go down and hand them out to whoever wants to take one, just because
Yep.
it's fun. I'm like, everybody should have a little piece of art.
Yep. Yep.
Um, and so I love that whenever I hear a photographer that's still like doing the books and printing out their work, I'm like, that's what's up. Like that, it's way more impactful to see a photo printed, especially big ones, like big prints when you go to shows. Um, Dude, I love it. So I gotta have one.
There's something to be said about quality
Hmm.
when you can hold something.
Yeah.
And when it's a digital and it's subjective, like anybody can, look on their phone and be like, "Oh, that looks great," right? Well,
Hmm.
the resolution on that is so small. But when it's printed out on nice paper and people hold that, there's mentally, subjectively in the back of your head,
Hmm.
there's a transfer of quality in
Yep.
that held handheld item. And
100%.
when you've designed something that looks really well, feels really well, and someone knows that you've put a lot of time and effort into this,
Hmm.
they're already thinking, the gears are turning
Hmm.
subconsciously, like, okay, this is someone who knows what they're doing or has
Yeah.
put a lot of forethought in it. And if they're putting a lot of forethought in this, you're going to be the same way when you work with them on set.
Yeah, there's
So
an understood value in print now,
for
and I think
sure.
like back when I was in college, still they were talking about how print is dead, and I'm like, I disagree. I think that print shops are going to like in mass, like maybe papers and like magazines and stuff,
Newspapers, publications, yeah.
right? Maybe, yeah, like those are going to go digital. But when it comes down to like actual, again, because there's something about and I think you'll appreciate this, right? When you get something handed to you that's got like, you know the paper stock has been considered, the type of print, embossing, right? Like all the different things that can go into creating this like premium top tier feeling booklet that when you get handed, you're like, woo, this is special, right? You can't recreate that with a phone screen, right? And I love that kind of stuff. I think that's
I can't
huge.
tell you how many people I've sent that to creative agencies where I've found, a decision maker, whoever that may be, or a contact that I have, and just ship them a new book with a handwritten note.
Hmm.
Uh, and a lot of times, that will stay on their desk, that one piece, because they don't want to throw it away.
No.
And so there's a lot of recognition when something like that is put together really well.
Hmm.
I'll be honest, they're not cheap,
No.
but that's the risk you take when you put that together, and they get it and they're making that decision, like, okay,
Hmm.
this is who I need to use on this project.
Yep. And I weirdly, yeah, dude, I weirdly save those things. I mean, maybe it's not weird. You can relate. Like whenever I get, like if I get a certain print or a magazine or a publication in the mail, I always like I keep it for inspiration a lot of
Oh yeah.
times because there's like, I got this one. I've got it somewhere. It's up on my bookshelf. It was like a little. It came. I bought some snowboard bindings from Burton, and the design team or whoever had put that packaging together had like thrown in like this little zine. It was like a little printed out deal that had a bunch of nice photography. Some of the photos were gloss print, right, with matte paper stock, and I was like I'm keeping this, right? Um, all that stuff I love.
Yep,
So,
they know it works.
oh, totally,
Yeah.
it totally works. Like again, that's why going back to Apple, talking graphic design stuff, why like the user experience of it's a premium product by the way you unpackage it and the stuff that's included in the packaging. It shows and communicates the value. So I
All those little details go into the thought process. Yeah,
100%.
for
Do
sure.
you have a favorite photo out of all the stuff you've shot? If you had to be like, that's my favorite, is there one? And if so, what is it?
I've got a favorite series.
All right. What's your
In art.
favorite series?
Yeah, so and I think this goes hand in hand with my accident.
Mm.
So at the time when I was in New Zealand in 2016, I was there to I was creative directing myself to get a shot of a stag roaring into the lens.
Hmm.
Like I want to be, super close, and I want that, I want to smell breath, right? I want to get up in there. And so you have to do that with either a really big zoom or be
Right.
pretty
Right there.
sneaky.
Yeah.
and lucky. And so I didn't get it. I was there and I thought I was going to get it, and then lights out. So I went back a year later, back to New Zealand, still going through PT. I've had a handful of surgeries, still on opioids, and I spent 21 days in the bush, and that was like one of the big decisive moments of like, I've got to do this project and go back and overcome this thing. And I know it's impacted my life. I know it's impacted my family. Let's make the best of it and go back and get that shot. And I spent 21 days chasing stags around, and I captured some unbelievable wildlife imagery all around the North Island and the South Island of stags roaring. And I got what I wanted. I got super close, and I just happened to enter those into the Sony World Photography, awards, and I was top 10 wildlife photographers in the world.
Let's go.
One of 3 Americans to make it that far. And so that series was really, really cool. Some of the coolest work I've ever done with wildlife, which is a huge passion of mine, just from the animal perspective. So I love chasing wildlife. I wish I could retire on wildlife. It doesn't pay very much, but that's where I would retire.
Not anymore. I grew up watching like some of those old school like Nat Geo documentaries where the
Oh
guys,
yeah,
you have to go out and live in the woods to get these shots.
yep.
And I still love it.
Wild America with Marty Stauffer.
Oh yeah, watched all those, man. Yeah.
Yeah,
One of
yeah.
my favorite
Mutual of
ones.
Omaha.
Oh yeah, one of my favorite ones to this day, I think, is the bighorn sheep, and I think elk tape. I think I have it somewhere still on VHS. Love them. Yeah, that stuff is, again, that's, I think, what kind of got me started. My mom put a camera in my hand when I was young, and I started just goofing off with, the nature photos, like frozen, the classic frost on barbed wire, and frozen waterfalls and that kind of stuff. And,
Oh, I love it.
right, but yeah, Caleb, we're coming up here, hour and a half, so kind of last couple of questions here to close out this
Sure.
episode. What are you looking forward to for the rest of your career coming up this year, and where are you drawing your inspiration from right now?
Mm. I recently told somebody that I really enjoy working with good humans, and that can make or break this industry. It can make or break a shoot. Um, Having the right people on set with you is imperative, and being able to weed out the people who don't fit within that moral compass or that business model is okay. And I want to be able to rest my head on my pillow and not worry. And so I want to be surrounded with like-minded people, really good people who support that. Obviously my family is all supportive. My wife is my biggest supporter. But also that includes, my production crew, my go-to gaffer, grips, all those things. And that's imperative for my business model, because something shitty could happen, and if you're surrounded by good people, the shoot can continue, and we'll get through it, and everybody will have smiles on their faces, and the client sees that too, and that's important to overcome those obstacles mentally. Yeah, so that's definitely an ongoing goal for business.
Cool.
As far as inspiration, where do I pull inspiration from? I honestly pull inspiration from other photographers, and they may not be in the same categories of businesses that I shoot. I really pull a lot of inspiration from like motorcycles. But like, especially like, I'm not sure exactly what they're called, but like off-road motorbikes that can go on gravel, do a little bit of cement, get
Like
back in there with,
overlanding, like
yeah,
type
kind of
stuff.
overlanding
Yeah.
bikes like those BMW bikes or Triumph
Mhm.
bikes. I pull some inspiration from that, even some publications, but I pull a lot of inspiration from photographers all over, and I try to save some of that and build mood boards that just the way they think may inspire something that I can apply to the way I shoot or my clients, and that's always helpful.
Yeah, mood boards, you guys. If you don't do mood boards, you probably should.
Yeah,
A mood board is
super
something that I
helpful.
know I pulled from BFA days. It's pretty simple. You just have a kind of a concept or an idea or a certain mood you're looking for, and you go find content that supports it. Could be colorways, right? Could be swatches, could be textures, could be
I do
overlays.
all of that.
Freaking, yep, could be video clips, could be other photos, posters, print, you name it. And you just build this whole collage of just that captures that certain mood you're looking for. And then when you go to do, like, dude, mood boards are huge. I don't do them enough. I love searching for color swatches. Just a weird thing about me. Like, I'll go on Pinterest and I'll be like, pull, color swatches and colorways from this photo. And, I love working with those. It's super fun. Graphics.
There's a website, I believe it's called. Let me pull it up real quick. I believe it's colors COOLORS.co. Yeah, colors COOLORS.co. One of my favorite websites. So actually, back from my fine art days, I
Hmm.
actually will develop pitch decks and pull in swatches
Hmm.
with the hex values and everything like that. Not many people like you and I know that stuff
Hmm.
that can apply and speak to a designer or a creative director who's making those decisions. I've
Yep.
actually built pitch decks that include, not only mood boards that I'm pulling, locations that I've been to or pulled, but also I'll start to introduce, copy and then creative direction, and then also swatches within the creative deck that have, just here's the color palette that I think would work best in this scenario.
Yeah.
And quite honestly, it has given some companies a shock factor in saying, holy shit, maybe we need to rethink our brand here
Hmm.
and the way we're approaching our creative, and work with you to redefine that, and let's go back to the drawing board.
Yeah. No, that's huge stuff. That's stuff that I value. I pull from past live info all the time, right? Like, I worked in a hobby shop for years, high school through like early college days in the RC section. So working retail, but also working on nitro powered RC cars,
Yeah,
helicopters, airplanes, you name it. And that, like, I draw from that stuff all the time. Like, just even being able to communicate people, talk to people, but then graphic design school, all of this stuff applies.
yeah.
Um,
It's so
but
funny. I used to build low C cars.
oh, right on. That's right.
Yeah,
Dude, yeah, dude, I know all about them, man.
yeah, yeah. You do.
Tuning those freaking engines in the
Oh
back of the
man.
shop, man. Nitro exhaust and all that, huffing those
Yep.
fumes. Oh, good times.
Yeah. The
It's
smell. The smell is what gets me, man.
hmm
Once that nitro comes out, you're just like, oh man, it takes me back to memories.
dude, I know everything. I love that. I used to actually, I would tune the engines for extra because we had like a tune up fee. People pay $50 an hour for us to work on their RC cars for them. And I made like, I think almost a couple. I think I made $2,000 one summer just in after hours working on tuning up people's
Tuning them up.
little
Yeah.
engines and stuff for them. And it's amazing how much of that transfers over. Because for those of
Yeah.
you guys that don't know, a little nitro powered RC engine is like basically a little miniature diesel engine. And you can learn a lot about how the cars run just from doing that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Mechanics. Yeah.
oh yeah, man, it's pretty wild. I had yeah, everything right down to the transmissions, the drivetrains, all of it. It's
Oh
pretty
yeah.
much.
Different. Yeah. Rebuilding
Hmm.
differentials,
Yep.
rebuilding shocks.
Yep, gear ratios for high end, top end,
Yeah.
right? Whether you want
Yeah.
torque or
Yep.
speed, all that stuff, man. Super fun. But Caleb, thanks so much, man. I appreciate your time. Do you have any kind of just last words of advice, things that you would tell yourself from your experience now? Like, if you say, Caleb, fresh out of college, here's some advice. What would that be?
Yeah, well, Josh, I appreciate the opportunity to, jump on with you and spend, an hour and a half and just BSing about stuff that we love to do.
Hmm.
So first and foremost, thank you. I appreciate you
Yeah.
having me. The one piece of advice I would probably give, 22-year-old Caleb is confidence, and build confidence in yourself
Hmm.
and your abilities, and know that, you know, it's going to take time. All creative processes take time. You're not going to come out of the gate just, 20 something years old thinking that you're going to dominate everything. You're going to find your way, and you're going to make a lot of mistakes, and mistakes are okay. And that's just part of building your portfolio and building clientele, and you'll learn. Some doors will shut, others will open, and that's always the case. So you've got a lot of time. As long as you stick with it and put in a lot of effort, and you just continue, it'll grow with you.
Dude, that's great advice, you guys. All of the information that is in here that has been brought to you by Kaleb this evening is invaluable, and I encourage you guys to take it to heart, check some stuff out. Kaleb has done some outstanding work. I draw inspiration from him on almost a weekly, if not daily basis. So Kaleb, thank you again so much. If somebody wants to work with you that's watching this, let's say it's a big corporation, which maybe someday, hopefully I have somebody that's watching this that is that way. But if somebody wants to work with you, hire you directly, what is the best way they can get in touch with you?
Yeah, you can go onto my website, kalebwhite.com. It's Kaleb with a K. Or you can email me, media@kalebwhite.com.
All right, you guys, take him up on that. If you have questions about anything, I'm sure, Kaleb, do you want to be spammed by a whole bunch of people with questions? Do you take those well, or?
Yeah, I'm happy to answer questions. Yeah.
All right, you guys, spam Kaleb. Ask him all the questions. Kaleb, again, thank you so much. I appreciate your time, your knowledge, your expertise, for sharing some of your stories with us. Thank you. Looking forward to seeing, again, what you continue to do, and I definitely am going to pester you for one of those books, because I like collecting that stuff, so I'm going to follow up with you on that. But you guys, thank you so much for hanging out for this week's episode of Guns and Cameras. Stay tuned. We got a lot of great stuff coming in the works, and yeah, I guess we'll catch you on the flip side.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Joshua.
No. Oh, no. Oh, they found me. Dang it. You guys, it's the end of this week's episode of Guns and Cameras featuring legendary photographer Kaleb White. Kaleb, thank you so much for taking the time to share your stories, your wisdom, and your professional expertise. Crazy valuable, you guys. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to go to Kaleb's website and let him know it. I am going to get out of this mosquito-infested woods of North Idaho and get back to some air-conditioned, bug-free areas where I can process some of the photos I took on my adventure in the woods. You guys, thanks for hanging out. This has been Guns and Cameras. Stay tuned. We got a lot more great stuff coming in the future. And stay safe, stay sane, and if you see Bigfoot, tell him I'm looking for him. Have a good day.